For a monogram sign, when we open up Rhino, we want to make sure we're in small objects inches and make sure that we have the top viewport maximized so that we're working in the top. We're going to start by typing in text object, and we need to figure out what letter we're going to use for the monogram sign. A lot of ones that we've seen, it's the first letter of the last name or the letter of the name that's going in there. So that's your first decision. We're going to do a B for Braves, so we're going to go ahead and put that in. And then we need to pick a font. You can pick most any font. Some that are kind of different don't tend to work out real well. You want something that's big, something that can easily be split in two. The one that I found here for this that I liked was Courier New, and I'm going to make it bold. Yeah, I'm going to make it bold. You can make it italics if you want. Okay, playing around with those is completely up to you. We want to make sure that we have curves selected, that we have group objects selected, even though this is all one piece, so group objects, and we're going to set our text height to 16 inches. Once we've done that, we're going to hit OK, and we're going to place it. It really doesn't matter where you place it. It's kind of personal preference. Next thing that we're going to do is do a rectangle. So I'm going to type rectangle. And for this, I'm going to have grid snap on so that I can use that. And I want to make a rectangle that's about as wide as our letter is, and that's 2 inches tall. So with my grid set, I'm going to go ahead and do that right there. Now I want to get that centered, so I'm going to click on the big B, click on the rectangle, type a line, and I'm going to do horizontal center, and I'm going to do a line again, and I'm going to do vertical center. What that will do is make sure that I have everything lined up side to side as well as up and down. Now I'm going to click on the rectangle. I'm going to do an offset, change my distance to 0.25 inches, hit enter, and then I'm going to drag it out. Inside of here is where the name or the rest of the text is going to go. So I need to type text object again, only this time I'm going to put the name that's going to go in this box in here. So in this case, I'm going to do Braves. You may have to play around with making it uppercase versus lowercase. Sometimes lowercase doesn't work right because it doesn't connect to both sides of the rectangle. Sometimes it does. So you'll have to play around with that. Again, you can choose between bold and regular italics. Play with that and see what you like. Curves, group objects. Only this time we're going to set our height to 2 inches so that it fits within that rectangle that we made. We'll do that. Then we're going to zoom in, and we're going to, now I'm going to turn O snap and grid snap off. And I'm going to put it in so that it's about centered. I'm going to go ahead and center it here with a line. So horizontal center, there we go. Do it again, do vertical center. Okay. So it's centered side to side, it's centered up to down, or up and down. Next thing I want to do is make sure that our letters are touching both top and bottom, and it's not quite. So I'm going to have to scale that just a little bit to make it so that that overlaps. So I'm going to highlight that, type scale. We want to make it so that they just overlap. Not quite on the bottom, so I'll do that again. Okay, now I have it where my letters just overlap. That's important because what we're going to do is trim some of this out, top and bottom, so that we have one continuous piece. Now, top to bottom I'm good, but I'm going to go ahead and align this again just to make sure. Vertical center, and there we go. We can see it moved it a little bit to the left. Okay. If you want to make any changes, if you don't like the way the font looks, if you want to use a different font in here, if you want to change your letters, now is the time to do that before we move on to the next step. So for the next step, we're going to highlight everything. We're going to type trim. What we need to do is trim out anything in here that we don't want cut. So I'm going to start by just getting rid of the lines from the original B. And we'll do the same thing over here. You got to make sure you get everything out that you don't want. Otherwise, the plasma will try to cut it. And that obviously creates some issues. Okay, so we're good there. Let's see. Trim that guy out so that that's attached. We'll trim that there. Now I want to go in and trim the letters. Again, so that we have one continuous piece of metal. If we don't do that, when it cuts, it's going to fall out. Now here's a place, just something to recognize, where the two letters overlap. We need to get that trimmed out as well, otherwise it will try to cut all of that. And get those. Okay, so the top looks good. And do the same thing on the bottom. Go through and trim all of that out. Now you may notice that, wait a sec, that E looks kind of funny because there's not a lot of delineation there. We'll fix that here in just a minute. So I'll finish trimming all this out. There's another place where our letters overlap that we need to recognize. Okay, so we got everything trimmed out. So we can hit enter because we're done trimming for now. And we notice, okay, that looks pretty good, but yeah, we need a little bit of delineation here. We can do an open curve, which will be just a line that's going to go to the top here. I'm going to turn on OSnap and Smart Track. Hover over that a little bit. And I'm just going to draw myself a line out there. About like that. So the plasma will cut that, and it will give us a little bit of delineation there. We're going to do the same thing down here on the bottom. How big of a gap there you leave is kind of up to you. You can play around with that and see what you like. But that's how we would add those in. So I'd go through, I'd probably do some here on the bottom of the A and the R, top of the A, and definitely on the E. The rest I think will look okay. So now we have a decision to make. We can decide what we want to do with the ends here. If we want to bring them in closer, we can do that. If we want to cut this part out so that it's open, we can do that. We have, again, several options there. So just to show you what this might look like. So this would be open ends. We could do something like that. I personally prefer the closed end here in most cases. So I'm going to do that. But there's a pretty big gap there, so I'm going to move that in a little bit closer. And I'm going to try to get it so that it's about the same on either side. So if I come up from right here, that's not straight. Let's undo that. There we go. So I'm going to make it even with this first part of the B right here. So I can use my grid. And I see that I'm a little less than 3/4 of an inch over. So I'm going to do that. Same thing on this other side. So probably, turn on grid snap, right about there. Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay, and then what we're going to need to do is offset that line. Whoops. Apparently I forgot to check my top, so offset. I don't want the cap on. I want none. And I don't want both sides. Nope. Whoops. Come back. No. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I moved that over 1/4 of an inch so we can add that. And I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Okay, now we need to go through and whoops, do some trim. So we're going to get rid of that, and that. Make sure you get these little guys too, otherwise the plasma will try to cut that. sure I don't have any overlaps there. Nope. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to highlight everything, and I need to join it. Okay, so everything's joined. It tells me I have 3 open curves, which is fine. It's going to be 1, 2, 3. I always check that to make sure I don't have open curves that I'm not expecting. Then, to make sure I like how this looks, I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to do a hatch. It's going to go on the inside. So what that does is show me what my finished sign will look like. Now, it does not show the open lines that are going to be right here, just because it's only a single line. But I like the way that looks. And we can use the hatch to see that. When we're done, we can delete the hatch. We're going to save our file, and then we're going to highlight it, and we're going to export. So first save it as a Rhino, and then we'll export it. We need to export it as a DXF. Go ahead and give it a name. And save it. Hit OK. Now this is exported as a DXF, so we can take it to the Plasma and open it up in SheetCam.